Do you remember your first steps into the lands between? Many of us have started new game after new game, destroying the grafted scion and skipping the tutorial so we can once again open the door that leads us to that golden land, where White Mask Vari waits to welcome and degrade us. One of the most jarring aspects of this place as we take our first steps onto these verdant fields is the many corpses strung up just ahead, crucified for some misdeed we may never truly unravel. But did you know these poor souls are not really dead? If we explore this same patch of land at night, we can hear their pained wails, the moans of people who cannot truly die, forever cursed to be crucified against what appears to be a rune arc, much the way we find Queen Marika at the end of our journey. So who are these people, and what did they do to deserve this horrible fate? Let's take a closer look and see what we can glean. Welcome back to Square Table Gaming, where we bring you the lore of Elden Ring and Night Rain every week. This week, we're sponsoring ourselves again by asking you to check out our Patreon. Much like our memberships on YouTube, we're offering early access to our content, but at additional tiers, we've got new perks, like behind-the-scenes looks at our editing process, access to the scripts for all of our videos, and ad-free content. If you want to support the channel and enjoy our entire library ad-free, please consider signing up for the STG Patreon. With that said, let's talk about the fate of these poor crucified souls. The first clue we have about these tortured undead lies not 10 feet from where we first encounter them after entering the lands between. It is here that we find the Effigy of the Martyr, which is used across this land in order to activate summoning pools, which allow our Tarnished to call for help against forces that are often too great for us to defeat ourselves. The title of Martyr is typically given to someone who's put to death for their beliefs, but it can also be applied to someone who gives up something of great value for the sake of their principles. I believe this second definition could apply to these poor souls hung up on these crucifixes, meant to mimic Marika's Great Rune. These people are not truly dead, but they've given up their freedom. They've lost more than most could ever know, and they writhe in unending pain. So what can we learn from the Effigy of the Martyr? By activating these tiny statues, we're opening the summoning pool so that those who are tarnished from other worlds can either fight alongside us or invade us. It's interesting that these seem to serve no other purpose and are strictly meant to have utility for the tarnished. In fact, we even carry golden and bloodied effigies that allow us to interact with other worlds on a larger scale than our fingers. We've established that the effigies are meant to aid the tarnished, but we still have no idea who these people are who are hung upon the larger versions of these helpful sculptures. There are only a few clues we have to go on from their physical appearance. First, they all share a nearly skeletal structure, which in the lands between means they are older than we can know, possibly even crucified before the shattering. They cannot die, and it seems as though the tree sentinels posted here in order to make sure no one else harms them either. If you also consider the popular theory that this tree sentinel is meant to greet new tarnished who make their way to the lands between, there's an easy line to draw, but I want us to hold off on that for a moment. Second, when we look at these martyrs at night, some of them have clearly been burned, with embers still holding strong in their flesh. I believe we can assume they have all experienced this burning, as it would explain their jerky-like flesh and lack of eyes. But then again, the Wandering Nobles share a similar appearance, so maybe not. Third, many of these people are wearing the Guilty Hood, an item we can purchase from the nomadic merchant on Mount Gelmir. This hood is described as a coarse hooded cloak of olive brown, the garb of those accused of lesser crimes, indicated by the collar of sharpened branches. If we consider that this is how those who committed lesser crimes were treated, I hate to see what they do to those who have committed graver acts. Whether or not the Guilty Hood has any association with the Guilty Shield or the Staff of the Guilty, I'm not sure. Both of these items are associated with the Bloodstar and Thorn sorceries, as well as the Thorn sorcerers, who saw visions of the Erd Tree burning and had sharp barbs placed over their eyes. To me, the Guilty Hood stands apart from these other Thorn-associated items because of the placement of the sharpened branches, and the fact that the Thorn sorcerers were sent away, rather than being made an example to others entering the lands between. This would leave us with a bleak and ultimately unsatisfying explanation of who these people were. Just your regular, garden-variety citizens of the lands between, who committed some kind of minor offense and were punished eternally for it. However, that's not all there is to this story. While it's always a slippery slope to consider cut content canon, the version 1.0 description of the Guilty Hood was much different from what is currently shown to us in the game. Garb of spurned Tarnished, who were forced into slavery in the Lands Between. The Tarnished have been wandering into the Lands Between from beyond the Sea of Fog in dribs and drabs since times of old. Most are killed on arrival, but the few, unlucky survivors, are taken as slaves. Suddenly, all of these pieces fit together much more neatly than they did before. If these martyrs are all tarnished, we know why their effigies allow Tarnished to travel between worlds. We know why they're primarily located just outside of where the Tarnished first enter the Lands Between. And finally, we understand their connection to the Tree Sentinel. Perhaps he's the one stringing up the new Tarnished that wander into these lands as a warning that nothing but pain and misery will meet them beyond this point. So we're better off returning whence we came. If these martyrs are tarnished, this would even explain their sunken, decrepit appearance, as the Tarnished only became tarnished before the shattering of the Elden Ring, when they were sent off on the Long March. Perhaps those that refused to leave the Lands Between were crucified for their defiance, and those that came back through the fog, who were caught by the Tree Sentinel, suffered the same fate. I find it incredibly odd that the item description for the Guilty Hood was changed so significantly. I honestly can't imagine why the team behind Elden Ring ultimately chose to do this. If they simply wanted to have a stronger air of mystery around these poor souls, I can see where they were coming from. But it almost feels as if they decided the original description gave us too clear of an answer, and they didn't want us to have a single description we could point to for a confident reading of their purpose. Again, cut content should never be taken as gospel, because it was cut for a reason. But in this case specifically, it comes across as making things more mysterious for the sake of not providing a clear answer and forcing speculation. When we reckon with the idea that these martyrs are tarnished, the pieces fall into place so perfectly, to the point where any other explanation just seems silly when we have the context of how traitors and heretics were treated in the Lands Between. Personally, I believe these crucified martyrs are tarnished, that have long since had grace abandon them. They hang on to life by a thread, and are kept on their great ruined crucifixes, as punishment for ever returning to the Lands Between in the first place. Thankfully, we're able to take on the Tree Sentinel, either through raw gumption or with the help of Melina turning our runes to strength. And we never end up another poor lost soul, with nothing to do but howl in pain at a night sky illuminated by the golden tree we sought to conquer. Thank you for joining me as I explored the martyrs found as we entered Limgrave for the first time. Do you believe these skeletal beings meant to be tarnished are still tarnished? Or does the change to the description of the Guilty Hood mean that this idea was put out to pasture? Why does Vare stand beside one of these undead ghouls, when he could be harvesting what little blood they have left for Moog? Is the Tree Sentinel directly responsible for this gruesome scene we see outstretched between the Chapel of Anticipation and the Church of Ella? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments. Watch that button light up as I say like this video, and if you think we've earned it, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss out on any of our lore dives. Apparently the hype button on mobile is also incredibly important these days, so if you wouldn't mind, please hype us up. We look forward to seeing you again for more Elden Lore.